Hi everyone and welcome to today's webinar, How Snapper Further Protects Data in Amazon S3 using Cloud Workload Protection, CWP, for storage. My name is Samir Vasantapuram. I am a Partner Solutions Architect at AWS, and I'll be your speaker and moderator for today's webinar. I am joined by Kevin Stultz, Director of Product Management at Symantec, and Paul Hortop of Snapper, who is a cybersecurity lead, DevSecOps. Gentlemen, thank you very much for taking the time to be on the webinar today. So let's get started with why security has been so hard traditionally. The growing complexity of business requirements have led to complex borderless networks. Traditional security management has generally used multiple point products and static security policies that may have worked to protect outside intruders from getting into the enterprise. However, with the growth of shadow IT and the rapid increase in data flows from different sources, where customers are interacting with you through the web, IoT devices, mobile devices that employees may bring in, data being transferred within the cloud and to the cloud from your enterprise, and microservices interacting with each other. IT departments and security analysts now face a very different challenge, which is finding the needle in the haystack. So while we assume that the lack of visibility may mean we don't have enough data to identify an intrusion or data leak, it is more than likely that you may have that data but aren't able to sort through the flood to identify it. This leads to the second area of why security has been hard, the lack of automation. We've all heard the applications folks blame it on the security guys, the firewall folks blame it on the network ops team, the network folks then go back and blame the app developers. So with the flood of logs and data that you may have, along with the speed at which malware and intrusions can spread sideways through an enterprise, security teams now need to be quick, efficient, and address these current threats immediately and predict and thwart future threats. The best way to address this is by automating remediations to security events and having a playbook to do the forensics of identifying what was the vector that was used for the intrusion. However, with that said, some of the most sensitive workloads run on AWS. The AWS cloud infrastructure has been architected to be one of the most flexible and secure cloud computing environments available today. Going back to the visibility aspect, today it's really hard, if not impossible, for CIOs to know how many orphans there are and where they might be. With AWS, CIOs can use tools like AWS config and resource tagging to see exactly what cloud assets their company is using at any moment. No more hidden servers under the desk or anonymously placed servers in a rack and plugged into the corporate network. This has helped customers like Finra in the financial services vertical to move about 90% of its data volumes to AWS and are using AWS to capture, analyze, and store a daily influx of 37 billion records. Startups such as Slack, who's disrupting the traditional communications tools business, have used AWS so they can build their applications while not having to worry about the underlying infrastructure security. This was actually called out by the director of ops, who mentioned, and I quote, the fact that we can rely on AWS security posture to boost our own security is really important for our business. AWS does a much better job at security than we could ever do running a cage in a data center. And finally, in the world of genomics, the global scope of research and clinical studies requires a secure and compliant environment within which researchers can share and collaborate on datasets tools in real time. On AWS, the DNA Nexus domain-specific data management platform offers tailored compliance and security and provides fine-grained data management for transparency, reproducibility, and data provenance for consistent bioinformatics pipelines and results. Using AWS, DNA Nexus has scaled to more than 56,000 simultaneous compute cores, multiple petabytes of storage, and tens of millions of core hours of analysis. So keeping in mind some of these examples, moving to AWS can help strengthen your security posture. AWS's scale allows significantly more investment in security policing and countermeasures than almost any large company that could afford themselves. AWS has achieved a number of internationally recognized certifications and accreditations, which customers can inherit. You can scale out or scale in or go global in minutes. And you can scale out or scale in driven by a very metrics-based approach using auto scaling. You can automate instantiation of your environment through code using AWS Cloud Formation, as well as notify and remediate through services like Amazon Simple Notification Service, or SNS, and AWS Lambda, which is our service compute platform. AWS also provides tools customers can use to encrypt their data at rest or in motion as a part of a standard security process for highly sensitive content, or customers can choose from a large number of supported third-party security solutions. Building on these several tools and features that AWS has, we also have a shared responsibility model with the customer when it comes to security. Examining the AWS cloud, you'll see that the same security isolations are employed as would be found in a traditional data center. These include physical data center security, separation of the network, isolation of the server hardware, isolation of storage devices, and so on. AWS manages and controls the components from the host operating system and virtualization layer down to the physical security of the facilities in which the services operate. And AWS customers are responsible for building secure applications. We provide a wide variety of best practice documents, encryption tools, and other guidance our customers can leverage in developing application level security measures. In addition, AWS partners offer hundreds of tools and features to help customers to meet the security objectives, ranging from network security, config management, access control, and data encryption. And this is where partners like Symantec bring their value to help customers address their business needs. We also separate this responsibility in two parts, as you might see on the slide here, which is AWS taking care of security off the cloud and the customer taking responsibility of security in the cloud. One of the great things of being in the cloud is that AWS customers, like I mentioned earlier, inherit all of the best practices of AWS policies, architectures, operational processes that have been built to satisfy the requirements of our most security sensitive customers. AWS has achieved a number of internationally recognized certifications and accreditations, where we're demonstrating compliance with third-party assurance frameworks, such as ISO 27017. ISO 27017 is for cloud security, ISO 27018, which is for cloud privacy, and ISO 9001, which is primarily for healthcare, life sciences, and aerospace industries. For global verticals, for instance, AWS has PCI, SOC 1, SOC 2, and 3 certifications. And from a healthcare law perspective in US, we have HIPAA compliance, where AWS signs business associate agreements with customers to FERPA, to CJIS, and a few others. AWS enables customers to meet their specific vertical security compliance needs. Furthermore, AWS international offerings are rapidly expanding. You have IRAP in Australia, MLPS level 3 in China, MTCS in Singapore, and AWS has also achieved public sector certifications such as FedRAMP at a moderate and high level for federal government systems. We're constantly listening to our customers and are looking into other certifications that will define the future. Our compliance program descriptions are posted publicly, and the SOC 3 and ISO certs are publicly downloadable on our compliance website. So one of the other things that customers use AWS for is to really scale with visibility and control. AWS Cloud operates 55 availability zones within 18 geographic regions. And what this allows you to do is, again, go global in minutes. The global network, along with the regions, we also have edge locations where we have 132 points of presence in 59 cities across 26 countries. And this has, again, allowed customers to leverage services in different regions, use auto scaling, and services like CloudTrail and CloudWatch to not only scale and go global, but to also maintain visibility and control. AWS takes privacy extremely seriously, and on AWS, customers always own their data, the ability to encrypt it, move it, and delete it. So by default, if a customer chooses an AWS region where the data will be stored, AWS will not replicate that data elsewhere unless explicitly the customer chooses to do so. This allows a customer, for instance, to maintain data sovereignty preferences. AWS offers you the ability to add an additional layer of security to your data at rest in the cloud, providing scalable and efficient encryption features like data encryption capabilities on AWS storage services like EBS, Elastic Block Storage, or S3, Glacier, and also database services like Oracle RDS, SQL Server, and Redshift. We also have multiple and flexible key management options, including AWS Key Management Service, allowing you to choose whether to have AWS manage the encryption keys or enable you to keep control over your keys, and even using dedicated hardware-based cryptographic storage using AWS Cloud HSM, allowing you to satisfy compliance requirements. Customers can also manage access to their content and user access to AWS services and resources using AWS Identity and Access Management, and audit access through AWS CrowdTrail again. So AWS again provides customers with the tools and services to build a highly scalable, reliable, and secure application. So with that said, I want to transition it over to Kevin to talk about Symantec Cloud Workload Protection for storage.
Thank you, Samir. So thanks for joining all. I'm Kevin Stoltz, Director of Product Management for Symantec, and I'm here today to talk to you about Symantec Cloud Workload Protection, specifically the piece of the suite related to protecting the storage and your data within Amazon. So as our customers move to the cloud, they've added new capabilities, which, as you were hearing from Samir, they have to deal with all of the security needs they have. What we've seen here at Symantec is, as we see this shift to the cloud from physical servers to private cloud and now to public cloud, is customers looking to be more agile, lower their overall costs while increasing their density. As they're doing this, they've been adding more and more automation, and as they adopt Amazon Cloud, they have reached an inflection point where they have introduced a new method of managing their servers known as DevOps. This is stretching the security team, who has done a nice job of taking their security controls and determining how can they implement them faster and faster as a bolt-on. But now that DevOps is coming along, they're looking for new ways in order to integrate the security into the DevOps processes. The fundamental change has been, in the old world, everything was IT ops managed. You would deploy your server, you would deploy your software, you would deploy your security. IT operations and IT security admins would give everything a green light. The application would go live and it would live forever. We have customers for today, we secure, which is still have traditional workloads running on Windows 2000, Windows NT services, because they go out, they perform their functions. The challenge that they're facing is, as the automation gets to the point of full DevOps, the processes that they have used and made faster over the years do not work. They need to work in an environment where you have continuous updates to the environment, but the actual system which is out there does not change. So instead of a method where the server is out there, I remediate it by patching it, providing new updates to it, they use a methodology where the server is brought live, the security is baked in, and it does not change. It is immutable. If I need a change, I need to replace the package and the original image, and redeploy it. While this is tremendous for the speed and agility for our customers, it has meant that the security teams have had to rethink the way they do security and the way they manage security. So at Symantec, partnering with them, we have built a solution which is designed to serve both the needs of an IT ops workload, where a new server is brought into the system and admin manually applies policy and reviews, as well as being able to deal with the very dynamic nature of the cloud. Within Symantec's Cloud Workload Protection Suite, we provide protection both for the actual servers that are running, as well as the storage. On the server side, it's about being able to provide security, which deploys with that workload in an immutable fashion, to where when the security and workload are brought live, they do not change, and can be used to provide controls from ensuring malware does not impact their Linux, Windows containers within the environment, and being able to enforce all the way up to full immutability where the server does not change. Today, what we're going to focus on, though, is the storage protection side of the Cloud Workload Protection Suite. As customers adopt Amazon and use many different methods of writing information to that storage, how do I ensure that that is secure? And so their challenge they're facing is, in the old world, your storage was tied directly to a compute and a server you managed in your data center, and was generally handled by it. In a cloud world, there are many avenues such as Lambda functions, Fargate, direct writing to that storage, which can introduce threats and malware to the environment. And our customers, additionally, as they move to cloud, are building a large number of applications, which are business to consumer and mobile apps, accepting inbound information from their customers, and possibly attackers, which they need to ensure is handled. So when we look at the kind of attacks we're hearing from our customers, this is an example of a real-world fly-to-site help a customer. They were using our server security to secure their servers within this environment, and they had a situation where, as they moved, they had an application which is container-based, and it was accepting inbound documents for resumes, people wishing to apply to join. What happened was not that that container application or any of the middleware associated with it was impacted, but in the end HR person looking at these, they had some issues with their workstations not fully secured. And one of these was able to get in and then find a landing point and then expand in their network. And this is an example of the worst case I have seen. What we have heard from many other customers is around, I am standing up this new business to consumer application. I am running a pen test against it, and my pen testers are finding problems. My most recent was a company who is accepting inbound images and PDF from a mobile application, which is used to deal with a car accident and filing a claim. And the pen testers were able to take and essentially weaponize the PDFs and the images, and the processing layer of their application had a problem where they ended up with a denial of service of the application because of the inbound data. As they picked it up and processed these malformed files, it caused those services to fail. So this is the problem we've looked to solve for our customers. As we went to solve this, there were some key tenets of how we needed to go about solving it. First of all, the solution had to be elastic and scalable, just like the cloud. So we needed to ensure that as the load up on their cloud data center within Amazon increased and more information is being written to the storage, that the infrastructure required scales up to ensure it can provide near real-time responsiveness and being able to scan for malware. And additionally, from a cost optimization, we need to ensure that when that amount of data coming into S3 decreases, the amount of infrastructure being run decreases. Another key ask from our customers was, don't make me send my data out to you, to your cloud, and deal with egress costs and adding another entity into the chain of the custody of that data. Many of them are accepting information which is regulated, and they need to ensure that that information stays within their data center. So the other key tenet of this is to ensure that the data is not coming to Symantec, but the scanning is actually happening within the customer's own data center. The other challenge they were faced with besides the malware is they got many asks of, while you're looking at malware, can you also keep an eye to make sure that I do not have somebody deciding to shower out, most importantly, files and folders. Amazon's got great tools to make sure that the buckets are secured, but they were still dealing with somebody going under and lower within that infrastructure and enabling the file to be accessed publicly. So they want to ensure that they know what information is being made public and the ability to remediate that. So the how we do this from a actual log into a console and set this up is, first, it is a CloudFormation template, which enables the read writes into the system. With the full cloud workload protection suite, it will collect not only the buckets and the information about what buckets are within the environment and where they are globally, it's also pulling back the instances and servers which are running and the information about them as well. The next piece is to obviously add the protection. And this is about then providing scanning for those buckets, which provide both real-time, scheduled, on-demand, and RESTful API scanning of the storage. And this, when it performs the scan, is scan once and perform multiple functions of look at the permissions as well as ensure that there is no malware. So under the covers, how this is being done is there is a CloudFormation template which deploys a controller, which is autoscale 0 for high availability, and then the actual protection units or scanners performing the scanner, which is an autoscale group, which is set to increase the number of protection units as the queue of files which are being written to S3 grows, to ensure that we can meet that near real-time ability to detect and respond while minimizing the cost of running the security service. Having this architecture ensures that we meet the data residency and chain of custody requirements of our customers, ensuring that the data stays within their cloud. The only information being sent back to the SaaS console is the information about the viruses and events, so the security team is aware of where they have public information and where they are seeing malware within their S3 environment. So in summary, Symantec's cloud workload protection for storage is providing automatic discovery of what are the buckets within your Amazon environment. Using the CloudFormation template within your data center, it's able to ensure in near real time that those Amazon buckets are being scanned, as well as the ability to programmatically issue scan requests for any area of that storage, as well as scheduled scans. In addition, it's monitoring in near real time as well for any misconfigurations of the permissions on those S3 buckets or folders within those buckets. Now what I'd like to do is turn this over to Paul Hortop from Snapper, who can walk you through how they have used cloud workload protection to protect their environment.
Thank you, Kevin. So, my name is Paul Hortop, and I am the security lead for Snapper. And today we're going to be talking about how Snapper services set up Symantec Cloud workload protection for storage. Just move us on to our first slide. I'll start by giving some background about our company and the challenge we faced, and then I'll talk about the solution and results, and then finish with a summary of the benefits we saw. Snapper Services designs and develops innovative ticketing technology for the public transport industry. Snapper's ticketing solution has been servicing the New Zealand bus fleet in Wellington since 2008, processing millions of secure contactless smart card payments and ticketing transactions for commuters each year. While developing a new service for students, Snapper had a contractual obligation to scan all inbound and outbound transactional data and personally identifiable information for malware before processing and storage. Symantec Cloud Workload Protection for Storage provides the simplicity and ease of deployment we require, along with the asynchronous protection and file tagging system required for proof of scanning as part of our service. We signed up for a free trial and were able to implement additional layers of protection for data stored in our Amazon S3 buckets in a matter of hours. Back in February 2018, Snapper had to develop a new large-scale solution that would manage concessions for student travel in and around Wellington. Snapper was asked to create a concession system to process the specific concession attached to each qualified student while securing each transaction and protecting the stored data associated with each journey. As part of this solution, we had a requirement to be able to scan files for malware. All of our services are built on Amazon Web Services, and I thought it would be easy to find a turnkey antivirus capability on AWS that would be cost-effective, simple to deploy, manage, and scale. Boy, was I mistaken. I was amazed at how few solutions there were. The tools I found were either very expensive or required open source stacks to be built and maintained. I did not want anything to do with updating signatures, updating scan engines, or patching systems. Luckily, as I expanded my search, I came across a reference to a new Symantec capability that had just been released in North America. I contacted the Symantec team in the US, and I was able to deploy a trial of the Symantec Cloud Workload Protection for Storage into our development environment. The trial was easy to get going. I only had to run a couple of CloudFormation templates and configure my S3 buckets to notify the scanning service whenever a new file was uploaded. There were some other important considerations. We did not want an antivirus engine running on our application servers. This would have slowed down our application and would have required support for updates, etc. It also did not fit into our DevOps concept of operations. Instead, I was able to build and run Symantec Cloud Workload Protection as a service. This made it very simple for our developers to consume. All they had to do was drop any file, in or outbound, into an S3 bucket, and they could rely on it being scanned and tagged. The scan runs in near real time, which in practice proved to be a couple of seconds. If the file was found to be malicious, it would be immediately deleted and an alert raised. This is what we built. Our application sits in its own virtual private cloud. It is protected by AWS GuardDuty, which is a threat detection service that continuously monitors for malicious or unauthorized behavior to help you protect your AWS accounts and workloads, and by an AWS Web Application Firewall, which defends against common OWASP attacks, probes, and scans. When a file needs to be scanned, it is placed in an encrypted S3 bucket, and a combination of simple notification service and simple queue service triggers the near real-time scan by the Symantec Cloud Workload Protection for Storage engine. There was, however, one critical thing missing for Snapper. We needed to be able to prove that we had scanned files and that those files did not contain malware. This was a contractual obligation as well as a best practice requirement. I raised a feature request to Symantec and was then blown away by their response. Within an hour, I was joined by the Symantec Cloud Workload Protection Agile Development Team, who worked with me to understand my business requirements and then promised to deliver the capability within 4 weeks. This was in March 2018. Less than a month later, Symantec delivered a fully functional tagging capability. Each scanned file is tagged with the date and time of the scan and the scan result. The concessions portal was deployed live in July 2018, allowing 40,000 students to apply for and manage their travel concession. We have a solution that is easy to manage, cost-effective, easily scales, and provides continuous visibility of S3 bucket security. This solution takes away the pain of updating virus signatures, updating engines, and as an almost free bonus, monitors your S3 buckets for misconfiguration and alerts if a bucket is configured with public access. This comes from a predefined policy. The trial was easy to set up. During the trial, we were able to load test the Symantec solution. Under heavy load, the solution is able to scan, and even when this is deliberately restricted, the solution simply stores the requests in a queue and works through the requests as resources become available. In normal practice, the solution would scale and additional instances would deal with the workload. In short, this product takes care of the undifferentiated heavy lifting, allowing Snapper to concentrate on building world-class smart ticketing systems such as RideBank. Thank you for your time today, and now I'll hand you over to Samir.
Thanks, Paul. All right, we're now going to transition into our live Q&A. As a reminder, you will be able to submit any written questions through the questions panel. In the event that we're not able to answer your questions today, we will follow up with everyone individually via email. So it looks like we have a few questions here. To get started, let me get to the first question. Can it scan the object rates as well as the bucket? I guess that's for you, Kevin.
Yes, Samir. Yes, it can. So as it's receiving that information that there is being a file written, it is checking both the writes as well as looking at it from a malware perspective.
Great. Is there any limitation to the size of the file that can be scanned?
So the limitation on the size of a compressed file is not there. It will just decompress it within the decomposers. A actual physical single file, there is currently a 2 GB limit on the maximum size, but we do plan to remove that limit.
Got it. We have another question that talks about is there a pricing model for the CWP for storage?
Yes, it is priced on the per gigabyte scanned and is available on the Amazon Marketplace. Additionally, there is a free trial available that allows you to test and utilize CWP for storage as Snapper did before moving it to production.
All right. So we have another question. What is the latency for the malware scanning? How can I scale up or down to accommodate for demand?
Sure. So as you heard Paul say, the methodologies available within S3 enable us to get to near real time within 1 to 2 seconds. It's based on receiving that information. And as noted, we automatically scale up the number of scanners if the queue length of things waiting to be scanned begins to increase. Also, as Paul noted, you can limit that, and we will just queue it and they will pick them up in time if you're looking to limit the scale that we can scale up to. And finally, we have customers which are coming and have a need for their DevOps workloads, especially those that are true microservices, where they need the microservice that's writing the file to know that that file was malware and deleted. So one of the things the scanners are capable of is they can receive a request, there's an SDK available, from that microservice to say, scan this file, and then get the real-time results back. So in addition to being able to scan the S3, we can have an inbound request to that for an application that needs to know in full real time, this file is malware and didn't get written, is also available for that microservice that needs that information.
Got it. So we have somebody who's using malware scanning at the application layer even before uploading to S3. In that case, what were the advantages of having S3 level CWP?
Sure. So that is a common thing that they do in addition. Just as I was covering, there are some services which need to know this. It's just a number of different vectors in which the information can get to S3, of people uploading files directly to S3, coming through any of the servers, etc. And it eliminates that need. And it's also just about the fact that, you know, it's only going to get the things coming through that app. But as I was just covering, there are certainly, we see many customers that are doing a combination of both. And we have one that's actually down the road if I'm integrated with MAP, and then I'm going to run a scheduled scan to take a look and make sure I didn't have anything come in from someplace else.
Got it. All right. Does it run on EC2 instances, or is it some serverless service?
So as Paul covered, it is serverless in the sense that there is not an agent on your EC2 instances that are writing data to S3. It is a set of instances with an SBC, a scanner. There are two scanners and a controller by default, which are underneath that are connecting to S3 and performing the scanning.
Got it. And do you have an API that you can programmatically invoke?
Today, it is via ICAP, Secure ICAP, and SDK, and REST API is coming.
Perfect. And we have another question with regards to cost. How much does it cost for AWS resources when deploying the solution?
So that's flexible. And what I mean by that is when you deploy the CFT, you can choose the size server that you're going to run on. And so by default, it is 3 servers, and whether those are mediums, large, or extra large is a selection you can make within the CFT based on whether you're writing petabytes at once and just want to have a couple that are always running. And obviously, if you're not doing well, you would choose smaller. And the slider you're using there is based on, is it scaling up a lot of these? If you're seeing a lot of scale up and they stay up, it's obviously more efficient for you to run it as a couple of larger instances. In general, it's 2 large, actually 3 large in total, and then the scale up and down is going to depend on the volume that you're writing.
Got it. We have another question. This is more in terms of compliance and regulatory requirements. Was there a specific regulatory requirement you were looking to meet? Did CW for storage allow you to meet it?
Paul, I think that's a question for you.
Sure, I'll go ahead and take that. For us, it was very much a contractual obligation, and the contract said that we had to scan all content.
Got it.
And Samir, before we jump to the next question, I'm just reading, I want to make really clear on the API piece of it. The API to tell it to go scan a file is a REST API that's available today. So if you have a S3 bucket or a folder or a file you want to scan, that is available in REST. My answer on the API was related to I am a microservice and I want to call the scanner directly versus going off of the S3.
Got it. think we have another few questions that we can go over. Will it work for cross-account architectures, or is it going to be on a account by account basis?
So cross account, and I always describe this, if you're paying one bill, right, it's one set of configuration to give us the access. If you're paying multiple, you will have multiple entries. And for customers in that mode, we even provide a REST API to automate the process of adding new accounts and buckets to the system.
Got it. So another regulatory related question is the solution FedRAMP certified?
We are not FedRAMP certified yet. We are working on it.
Got it. We have a question from a Symantec customer. They say, I'm a Symantec DLP customer. Are there plans to integrate these solutions? Does the solution have data classification?
So yes, that is becoming a common ask, especially from our customers who are moving regularly the data. So we will be extending it. So besides doing the scan for the malware and the permissions, we will also at the same time do a scan for your data classification and being able to enforce your information protection rules. And this is extending their current DLP architecture of enforce, adding a new scanner to that environment to extend that to S3. It's available in private beta today. We'd be happy to sync up with you, or symbeta.symantec.com to trial that new offering that we're bringing.
All right. Well, thanks. I think we've gone over most of the questions, and in fact, we covered all the questions that we had today. We have a little more information that you guys can go ahead and go through. The links are up there. There's even a email alias for people to contact Symantec in case you have any further questions or want to do POCs or things like that. So please feel free to learn more about the products, deployment models, and so on and so forth. So on that note, we're going to wrap up today's webinar.